One of the other major stories in American politics today, aside of the Trump-Russia saga, and we'll refer to it as a saga right now, is the on-again, off-again summit between the United States and Kim Jong-un of North Korea. We're fortunate this morning to have Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Addicott with us. Jeff, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Hey, good morning.
Thank you very much for your time. It does appear to me that there is a higher degree of tension as it relates to the still scheduled summit between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. Colonel, the underlying conditions and circumstances that has led to the tension from your perspective is what?
Well, we're not really talking to the North Korean leader. We're talking to the Chinese leader. We always got to remember that, because the reason we had this breakthrough was because the North Korean leader was summoned to China personally to talk to the president there, and the president there told him that, you're going to have to do X, Y, and Z. And, of course, we know that 90% of the sustainability of North Korea is because of China. And then there was a second meeting with a North Korean leader after he, did all these spectacular things like go to South Korea, shake the South Korean president's hand, and make all these concessions. And I think he's been told to slow it down a little bit. We need to have something on our side of the ledger. And I think one of the things that they really want is for American forces to be withdrawn from South Korea, which is not an unreasonable, bargaining chip on their position. As long as they give up nuclear weapons, there's no reason we need to have 30,000 soldiers stationed and garrisoned in another country. And I think that's something that, we're moving forward. But I'm about 99% confident that this will happen on June the 12th. We're seeing posturing, though, from both sides.
Colonel, as someone who's far more familiar with this than I am, help us determine and separate substance from optics. I mean, in politics, very often, the optics supersede the true substance of the negotiating and the processing. From your perspective, what are some of the substance issues we as the public need to pay close attention to?
Well, you're right. I mean, the fact that the meeting is going to take place at all indicates that that things are going on behind the scenes with their lower-level counterparts that are trying to hammer out the details. But our position is very clear that you must get rid of your nuclear weapons. And if that's not on the table, then we're not going to have the meeting. And so that's what we're all kind of waiting to see is how quickly can this process move forward. And we've got to keep the pressure up on the North Koreans and, as I said, the Chinese. Otherwise, this is not going to go anywhere.
Do you consider this potential negotiating to be a potential detriment to the U.S.-Chinese relation, or do you think there are opportunities to enhance the relationship we have with the communist regime?
Well, the Chinese have finally met someone that's not going to be played like an old violin as they've had in the past. All they got to do is say boo, and we bend over and give them whatever they want in terms of concessions, economic concessions. This president said, it's not going to happen anymore. We'll start a trade war. If you want to do that, let's do it. He's called their bluff, and the Chinese, of course, have backed down because they have, of course, a lot of economic interest in their own right. We buy a lot of their stuff, but if we stop buying their stuff, what will happen to them? The consequences for China would be far worse, and that's why the Chinese are responding, and that's what dictators respond to is they understand toughness. They don't understand vacillation, and we've seen too much vacillation in our foreign policy in the past.
The U.S. government, led by Democrats and Republicans, has always had I would argue, a sincere interest in humanitarian efforts around the world. We know the plight of the North Koreans. We don't know, but we're aware of some of the issues the North Korean public and people deal with. Do you perceive humanitarianism a part of this, or is this totally and completely about Kim Jong-un and the North Korean regime's desire to be capable of launching nuclear weaponry?
No, this president doesn't worship at the altar of internationalism or humanitarianism. He's a conservative, which means they're very compassionate, but they don't view that as our national policy and things that we're obligated to do. It's going to be the South Koreans, as we saw with Germany. When Germany was reunited, it's going to be the South Koreans that are very wealthy and very prosperous. If this country is reunited, it's going to fall on them to do that. But our motivation here has been, as the president says, America first. what's in it for us? And if we prosper, the rest of these other countries will prosper as well. And I believe that that's absolutely a truism.
Last question for you, Colonel. Once again, appreciate your time. If the meeting takes place as you still believe it will, what would success for the United States look like? And what do you think the United States potentially has to compromise on in garnering some success in the negotiating?
Well, again, I think the biggest compromise is going to be giving up our soldiers that have been garrisoned there since the Korean War. I myself spent a year there, and that's something that I think we can all be happy about. We have no business spending our money, our blood, our dollars in other countries. If you want, other countries should defend themselves, and we would happily give that up if they gave up their nuclear weapons. But this president's not going to unilaterally announce a withdrawal, as we saw with President Obama with the Russians, with the missile defense program that President Bush had put in place. He just unilaterally withdrew them without getting anything from the Russians. That's not going to happen in this case.
Colonel, we appreciate your time very much. Thank you.